All right, how we doing, guys? What up, Byron? We have a Waycrest key. Fix the camera in a sec. There we go. How's it going, everybody? Yo, how you doing, Don? All right. Time to spend a little bit of time today working on our Zero to Hero. A busy day working on all the hero talent stuff yesterday. How you doing, Don? The other Don. No breeze trees yet. That's okay though. I think having like a bad tree in Oracle, and then them saying, "Hey, we're going back on this," and then the latest builds, like the latest hero talents, I think are really good. They're either like neutral or really good, you know. And I think that's like a new good like spectrum to have them at, you know, compared to where we were with Oracle, right? So I don't mind it. We'll get them when we get them, you know. But it really seems like they're ramping stuff up, which is good. Because we had like what, 4, then 8, then like 6, and now we have 12 hero talents getting released. So yeah, I'm pretty hopeful. I think it's looking pretty good. My druid talent build? It's right here, man. 24 trees next week. I think there's only 16 left, something like that. Something like that.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Fun police rework, good ones. Talking about Oracle, man? You are crazy, my dude. Oh, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? Alright. And the defense went off. I actually forgot it was Sanguine Week. What a Giga Chad pull. How you doing, Aaron? Listen, I was super negative about the hero talent stuff before yesterday. Oh, they are pulling the boss 5 sure. Oh no. Oh no. Come on, man. Oh my god, that was so close. I actually don't know how we got away with that. Oh my god. Dang, I'm so close to keeping him alive. In a DPS class going to season 4. What do you push keys with? Probably the safest is mage. It's always safe. Always super safe. Yeah, I guess it kind of depends on what your priorities are. It's very difficult to know what's going to be like meta, you know? There might be some reworks, there might not be. Like Rogue's always a safe pick, Mage is always a safe pick. Yeah. Everyone goes to Fire Mage always? Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, on the one hand, it's like, hey, this is a, you know, tried and true concept, right? Just spelling that dude. Yeah, if you have any other ideas of like what you would want, ranged, melee, etc., that can help as well. But the general principle I would say is like somebody that's able to deal with the mobs really well or able to deal with affixes really well. Generally, it gives you a lot more control for the dungeons that you're doing. Like if you were playing a warrior, right? Or I'm trying to think of another equivalent. Warrior's like the really big standout one. But just as one of those is like an example or something. It's very difficult for you to help with the affixes, and then you're kind of at the mercy of the rest of the group to like handle them. And if you have bozos in your group that are not handling them, it's just gonna be harder for you to, you know, push up your keys and stuff. That's just one factor of control that you give up on, right? I wish this guy would actually move around. That'd be sick. 4 stacks? Yeah. I am 2785. Big old IO. You might just be able to see it in the debuff uptime. I haven't actually checked Byron. I am really excited for Monk after seeing that talent tree yesterday, man. I am so stoked. Insanely stoked. Also, we have a lot of shields going up. And we get to sit around and be silenced. Trend now works with Tiger Palm and Vivify. Hell yeah. The new hero one, Deuce, Deus. I actually don't know, Byron. I haven't like deep dived into theorycraft stuff. My Discord, we have a section where it goes over all the like diminishing return points, but I'm not sure if it's different for Druid specifically. Oh, ow. Hello, coffee. That is a lot of sanguine healing. I'm dead. Good night. The priest died on purpose? No, he's just not kicking anything. And he's just getting the target of everything. I actually don't know if he's expecting to kick. Oh, he did. Okay. He just kicked 3 times. Okay. I'm trying. Like, it is literally not for lack of trying. It's very difficult to see on these frames, but like, we're having an obscene amount of infected thorn casts go through. It's actually ridiculous. Yeah, I'll have to show you the damage. So why does Windwalker not like the tree? What do they not like about it? Yeah, I think the Farseer one was like mid. It was certainly very mid and not like super exciting. But I don't really expect all of them to be that exciting. But the fact that like at minimum it was like, okay, this is fine, like neutral, kind of meh, whatever, rather than actively bad. That's the big thing for me. As long as it's not like actively bad, that like the way Oracle was, I'm okay. Listen, you can't be saying that I'm not healing the Shadow Priest when he stood literally in the fire and stood there for a few seconds and then got double jumped on. The name? Thanks. Superhero, bring war within already? Yep. It feels the best when you master it. I'd say disc. Yeah. I'd say disc. Well, oh, anything to do with Jade Fire Stomp 10-second maintenance buff? Was it? I thought it just like after you hit Jade Fire, next RSK was big. That was kind of simple. I'm just gonna rip the trank. It really is. This is definitely like top 2, top 3 of like iterations of Disc Priest over the years, and I've been playing Disc for like 10 years, so it's very good. I think the overall like healing and how healing works could be better this expansion. Obviously, I've made a million videos about that, but like very pleased with how the classes themselves work. You know. So we take the wins where we get them. And it always kind of drives me crazy when people are talking about disc today, and it's like, oh, it's just so simple. And I'm like, man, a lot of you guys have not even mastered this. Like, come on. Less buttons doesn't always mean easy. Especially because, like, there's still more buttons for disc today than there was in, like, BFA. And actually, maybe even Legion as well. People kind of talk up Legion as being like, oh my god, super fun with disc. And it was, right? Like, how can they have that argument? Siege of Orgrimmar, that was certainly the most oppressive version of disc. I mean, it was very fun, but I don't want it to go back again. Oh my god, dude. It was the wave of oppression that you would spread across the land. Yeah. You able to get 3K this week? I'm like almost 2,800. But it's kind of tough getting some invites to groups. At 477 for whatever reason. Well, a lot of the people I'm running with are like 480 plus, so. Yeah. Dude, this Shadow Priest, man. He cannot catch a break. Yeah, he really doesn't. Pending rework. Okay. Well, hopefully there's a way that they can, like, make the Windwalkers happy. And keep the Mistweavers happy, you know? Do you think, like, would you say, because I don't play Windwalker, right? Would you say that they could make changes to it that would require it to be less of a pain in the ass, or do they have to, like, rework everything entirely? First being the best secondary isn't ideal to start with? Yeah, I've heard that for many years. Hellfire Citadel? Hellfire Citadel was not an oppressive time for Disc Priest. Did you break into the catnip a little bit early today? Unless you're talking about Mistweaver. Nah, Mistweaver just like playing good there. Yeah, at first, so I ran with the default build, Zarok, till I hit 2,500, and man, that build's bad. And then it kind of seemed like most of the talents just kind of made sense. It was like, here's all the rejuve talents. Rejuve kind of sucks and keys, so let's run all the things that are not rejuve. Oh, we found the build. That was it. Oh no, he's consuming all. Bro. Stand in melee tank. I beg. Don't care if I have to heal through some of the AoEs. I'm amazed we survived that. I mean, I know key level diff, but most of the default builds are like raid focused, basic builds, yeah. But they should probably make it so that the default is M+. Or they should have like a, you know, here's default 5-man, here's default raid, etc. Something like that, you know? I mean, it was an okay raid build. It wasn't great, but it was okay. What on earth is the, like, how is the tank taking damage? Taking more damage with this boss fight than the last one. Rid of Jade Fire maintenance, which is unnecessary. Got it. I hope that they do. Because I don't want anybody to have to be like, oh, well, if you don't like this one, just go to the other one. Because that's not a good answer. It was pretty fun, Alden. I think the most fun thing for me with this is more so that, like, almost like the lack of pressure. I feel like there's a lot of times where, like, my enjoyment of M+ is, like, whether we're chesting keys and getting IO and trying to, like, train myself out of that bad mindset of, like, let me just enjoy the ride. And that's what this is kind of getting me to do. Because sometimes we have some utterly ridiculous pugs, and it's just kind of funny to see crazy stuff that happens. People don't bother learning mechanics. Yeah, they really don't. They really don't. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there's going to be more, like, overall talent tree revamps. Very, very much expecting that. Oh my god. Alright, at least you move him down far enough. You know, coming back, how would you, the current meta will shake up in the upcoming season from a healer perspective? I'm hoping that there's gonna be, like, a paladin rework. I'm hoping that they're gonna have some other, like, experimentation with, like, affixes. Probably the best thing if you're like a high-end or you're somebody who likes to do lots of M+, the best thing that they can do for like healer balance is promote tank balance. Because healers like a priest who don't have a battle res or don't have a poison dispel, which could be really mandatory for a dungeon like Algathar Academy, right? Well, if a VDH isn't bringing the poison dispel, someone's got to, right? And, not the only reason, but those are reasons that, like, paladin or monk or whatever gets brought ahead instead of priests. So the more that they can kind of promote better tank balance than we've had this season, because this season's tank balance has been really bad. In fact, most of this expansion tank balance has been not good. Just like the better overall it would be. Everybody wins when tank balance is good. But I would hope that we would see, like, in the coming weeks, some amount of class changes. Especially as they kind of, like, get a head start for the War Within. Yeah. Oh, rip. All good class play if you like healers but want to dip into more competitive DPS. I guess. Personally, not a huge fan of how Og plays. If anything, if you're trying to be like getting into competitive EPS, then I would just say like finding an EPS to play. A lot of people are enjoying Red at the moment. That's really been like fodder. I'm excited about that Flame Shaper talent setup. I think that's gonna make preservation really, really good in a variety of content. I'm very hopeful for it. Welcome back, Alden. I was just saying, we don't know about any class changes yet, so it's kind of tough to say in advance, but if they actually are like doing a lot of tank changes, that would help promote like better healer balance. You don't have to worry about having a DPS bring the battle res or the poison dispel or whatever. But yeah, we'll see. I'm not sure if they're having like, I don't remember how many class changes they had in Fated Season last time around. But hopefully they're kind of getting a head start on class changes for the War Within by doing Fated changes. Yeah, but rest assured, when we do, I'll have YouTube videos aplenty about plenty of YouTube videos that cover any class changes that they might announce. Be all over that. I got all my treants out. They better be healing. The dude is going for the elite run. We are gonna heal Gorak Tool so much. Gorak Tool's healed for 3 mil. What up, John? No, I don't have an MMO mouse. There's only 2 buttons on the side of my mouse, and I just use Alt, Control, and Shift modifiers and everything like that. What up, Loco? He's not killing the ads? Well, they pulled all the ads in with the boss, and then, like, they didn't kill... Like, they didn't full kill the first, like, 2 waves of ads, and then the AoE went off, and it just resulted in us having 3 ads. Boss was taking, like, obscene healing. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of sanguine healing. Gorok Tool got 3 million on its own. Yeah. Some wild stuff. Got 9 points, though. Let's go. Let's go, let's go.
See, there is nothing a strong arm and a sharp steel can't fix.
Ugh. Sanguine offer coaching services? They should. Make good money. Make good money. Dazzler.
Champion, may I have a word with you?
A strategy for gears to start tackling 10s like 420-ish. So I geared up at 424, give or take. And I was starting with like M0s and like 2s and 5s and everything because I couldn't get invites into 10s. You could probably just like build up your own key. But I just did only pugs, only signing up for other people's groups, that kind of thing. I do have a dungeon or two. I have a 16 fortified Atoll, 19 depleted Rise, unfortified, 17 fortified Darkheart, 15 fortified Blackrook. So yeah, there's a lot of IO we can get next week. There's a lot. I also just need to like keep on slamming aspect crests. Are there a decent amount of like mythic pug raids going on? Maybe once I get this guy decently geared, I'll see if I can sneak my way into some mythic raid pugs or something. Explosion.
May I have a word with you?
Alright. Everbloom will be fun. A lot of sanguine here. And just DH doesn't get gutted. I mean, they don't need to get gutted. They just can't have 5 times as much shutdowns as everybody else. We just can't have so many of these silences. The only fun one? Is it because of the shutdowns or just like how the like mitigation and damage works? Best day of doing only your key, whatever you have, even if it's a 32 DHT. Oh god. Yeah, there's one key I'm trying to avoid this week. It's Darkheart. Oh man. Town for Prez, you want to see how good it is? Town for Prez, I want to see how good it is. Like a new talent? The hero talents? I know when we were doing the like sit down yesterday, I made sure that they like explained how a preservation would use like stasis with engulf. That was the one thing that came to mind. Man, I want to order more of that death lemonade. That shit was great yesterday. Thought about that this morning. I was like, man, I wish I had more Panera death lemonade. Buy like a whole just pitcher or something like that. Probably meth in it? Yeah, well, it tasted pretty good. I don't know what to tell you. I think they might be onto something here. Let me try more. Yeah, exactly. It's the only way to get stronger, John. It's the only way to get stronger. My brain needs this fast juice. Yeah, I can stop anytime I want. Oh, I think I sent this to Kalamazoo. There was something that was like... Oh my god, hang on. I gotta see if I can find it. Where was it? Oh. There was the... Do you guys know who Lawrence Taylor is? Who's a linebacker for the Patriots. And apparently he was on crack while he was playing in the NFL. And he was like, yeah, I'd spend entire games just thinking about smoking crack afterwards. It was a
5,
very, very crazy
4,
interview he did.
3, 2, 1.
The Giants? I thought it was the Patriots. Okay, you may be right. Still, though. Saw that interview and I was like, holy shit. Was it? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm young. I don't remember. Definitely a Giant? Alright, my bad, guys. My bad. Oh, he did destroy Theismann's leg. That's right. Let's all not die. Here we go. Okay. Either way, there was a 60 minutes interview, and it was insane. And then he's like, yeah, but it never affected my play. Like, yeah, I guess not, but still. Nice little double stack. There's also another thing I saw. I think I sent it to Kalamazoo, though. Where I was like, do you guys ever do like a weekly ritual of like doing meth with friends? I'm not addicted, but it was like a post. It was like, I'm not addicted, but I just do it on Fridays with my friends. And I'm not craving it. I'm just excited for Friday to come around. It was like, oh yeah, itching with excitement. Yeah, if only Disc got an interrupt, man. They could literally just have one talent point node for Disc and the hero talents, and it be an interrupt, and everyone would lose their minds. Yep. Or they could get rid of... Or they could get rid of kicks for all healers. Either way. It's basically Adderall. Isn't there some key difference? You think? Oh, derivatives of meth? Ah. They're taking Adderall? Is that what non-ADH people feel like all the time? I don't know, maybe. Have the same effect on people, and they make people on ADHD feel a bit more normal? Got it. Yeah, my parents were not big on having us tested or whatever for ADD or any of that other stuff. They were like, go play outside. It's temperature in Austin. It's rainy today, so it's like 67. It's a nice, like, faint drizzle going on outside. It's really nice. Really, really nice, actually. Same in Dallas? Yeah. I might go hiking this weekend, but we'll see. By this weekend, I mean tomorrow. We'll see if it's still, like, rainy and yucky. So... I didn't get hit by any tornadoes, but other parts of Austin can be kind of notorious for it. Yeah. I kind of like it when the air's sticky in Austin. Just a little bit, you know, not so much that it's like, well, that's when it's bad, it's like in Houston, where like you could just feel the moisture in the air between your fingers. The way Austin gets, where you can just feel a bit of stickiness and nothing too bad. I love that. Gotta have some kind of moisture in the air. I grew up in Virginia, so we always had a good amount of moisture going around. Except for the winter, there it got bone dry. No, I didn't. Was it really bad in Ohio? Got plowed, John? Oh, by a storm on Thursday, so I guess that's the system that got Ohio. Ah. Oh my god, we're two kitty cats next to each other. I kind of wish I still had Heart of the Wild here. They dropped a video. Mythic rating does not work. Here we go again. Sounds like I should give it a watch. I meant to watch the Asmongold video about Mythic rating, but, you know, I don't think I lost out anything there. But I'd watch the Bellular one. I'm undergeared and standing in bad. He's my eye level. Ten minutes ago. Haven't seen it yet? Yeah. I might watch it on my own time. Not having a super long stream today. Maybe it'll be a good little bit of React content fodder, maybe. I like how the tank is just owning his buddy. He's like dying on a warlock, insane with defensives up. Yeah, I was definitely not healing him. Ooh, 3 berserkers. All right, Tankums. Yo, what up, dude, Rave? Yeah, I hate to see it. Womp womp. And we are pulling every single A-bomb. Oh boy.
3, 2, 1. Three, two, one. Three, two, one. Three, two, one. Three, two, one.
Oh, the heal went off. No.
Three, two, one.
Here's the heal again. All right. Let's go. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the Feral. I've been a little busy. But now that I see it, yeah, something's going down. I'm pretty sure we got like 2 or 3 rounds of heals going off on that one. Yeah. Bit unfortunate. Okay, but things are calming down, right? Right.
One.
Yo, Runic, thank you for the new sub. Welcome in.
Three, two, one. Three, two, one.
Sorry to add, sort of new channel. Oh, it's Shiri. Okay, got you. Thank you, Shiri. Very, very much appreciate it. Yo, how you doing, Blue? Blue, are you up from all the Gamba yesterday? I think you might be the most up of everybody, if I remember right. Oh, yeah. $150K, let's go. Yeah, I gotta remember to do more Gambas for our regular keys. Go with whatever makes Blizz look the worse. Schwen had you laughing? Yeah, isn't that how you're supposed to say it? That's how I've always heard it. Surely there's some like cinematics or something where they say the name of the white tiger. Zwen, I want to say. Really? I don't know, man. He's 484. I'm not sure what's going on. I don't know. It's all part of the pug adventure, alright? It's all part of the adventure. Ow, 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 ow. Please resurrect. Please resurrect. Please resurrect. Come on, dog. You decline it? He declined it. That's crazy. I'm thinking. Okay. Oh, no. You just said no. I have Rage Heart on my Priest, but I haven't been doing too much raiding on my Druid. At least not yet. Yeah, I'm running with Leaf and Sea Star. So this is some pretty good stuff. Lol, I had Spectral Healing Potions on my bar. Hee. Dude, that Death Charger stuff is gonna be crazy. You're just gonna be running down some poor fools. Well. Good night, dear prince. He's taking it nice and late. Quite quirky. What else I locked in for after these hero talents? Definitely Monk. Definitely Monk. Lightsmith Paladin looks pretty, or sorry, not Lightsmith. Herald of the Sun Paladin looks pretty good. But we'll have to see about how, Paladin's doing in general, right? But I really want Paladin to be near the top of my list, man. I really do. I don't think it's a bad thing that we don't know about Priest yet, I'll be honest. I think the recent builds that they've been having are all really good. It's like, that just is encouraging to me. They're gonna come up with some good stuff for Priest. I'm saying, I'm a lot more positive. I'm a lot more positive than I was previously. $3K pugging, going pretty well. Going pretty well. I have a couple 15s and 16s that I need to polish up. On Fortified Week. Well, hopefully by the time Season 4 is out, we'll also have, like, Alpha and actually get to, like, see how they play, too. That'll be really big. Dang. That fucking sucks. I should have blocked. Or, barked. Oh, well. We, have boss dead in a sec, but... Isn't it? Oh, no, it's Ice and Arcane. That's fine. That's fine. I mean, they're gonna be in combat, so. Strong heals like Holy Priest. This whole having to prep Holy Fires and Glimmers and Tear Deliverance. The other CDs finding the heal feels clunky. Yeah, it's just too much bloat for Paladin. Just starting. How you doing, Crassus? You should feel bad about... Lightheartedly point out that you should feel bad about the character name. Listen, chat voted on it. They decided. You gotta reroll off Mistweaver if Master of Harmony's bad? You don't like the one we got presented today? Or yesterday? At a 487 Shaman, your fall. 25. Doing 66k heals on massive pulls and blaming us for dying from the AoE. Hell yeah. Oh, you're not a Fistweaver fan. I gotcha. That's right, Runic.
The portal is lost. We must stop this beast before it can escape.
I'm very glad it didn't open up right away. I don't know if this is me or them. Gotta look at the cat's deaths there. He's just taking... I don't understand. His gear's gotta be broken. His gear actually has to be broken. That's honestly the only explanation. My defensives won't work, they're bugging. I'm pretty sure his gear is broken. Can't see his health though. I have to click them 3 times. That might explain some stuff. That might explain a few things. Eye level 477. I wish either of these guys would actually stand in my F-flow. Yeah, the hunter is now. God bless. Hunter seems mostly a wedge. Yeah, we're not too shabbily geared. Prologue friend, please just stand in the F-low. Oh my god, we are 1% short. Oh shit. Ah, we got 3 minutes. We got 3 minutes. Did we not pull some of the assistants though? Safe to say, our shaman's best pug healer? I think Monk is. Yeah. Holy Priest is also pretty good in pugs, too. Yeah. He doesn't exactly jive with where the mobs are actually positioned. Yeah. Yeah. But I swear, okay. Oh, you know what it is. You know what it is. We didn't pull the flowers before Witherbark. Or the ones that are right after. So, yeah. But we literally pulled like every A-bomb and Berserker we could. We just didn't pull too many Lashers. Yeah. First bug healer, maybe Disc. It's doable, but not ideal. Easy. I'm not sure what's going on with the Feral. I mean, they have 820k health, so I don't think their gear was broken. I don't know. Ow. How am I getting no and almost no swirls under me on Soul? Oh, the Archmage. I feel like no matter where I stand on that boss, get 4 swirls every single time. I mean, I was in melee, so I had to move every time. Prez, like the HPS is insane. Along with damage, but nobody plays them anymore. Well, I think for keys, there's a lot of healers that are really good. And there's still a lot of Augs out there, which kind of fills in that preservation slot, or the evoker slot. So I think that doesn't help. But I think what really carried preservation early on in this expansion was that it just did so much more healing than everybody else. And that's not really the case anymore. It does fine healing, but like, people always want to bring the best thing, right? There's also a decent amount of like single target checks, single target healing required. And obviously, Prez is not great at that. Unfortunately. This is his first healer. It's an adventure. That's great. Go him. I love it. I love it. All right, let me run to the bathroom real quick. 1 second. I'm going to get ads out of the way as well. Be right back. All right. The react. How long is the video? Rating doesn't work anymore. 24 minutes, 20 minutes, yeah. Yeah, I'm down. I'm down. Let's do it.
Community. The idea. Welcome back to the show. So, there's a noise going around in a segment of the Warcraft community. The idea that Mythic raiding is actually dying. This is a tone that's been around, and it's one that's very much amplified with the disbandment of Big Dumb Gaming Guild, which were one of the fairly well-known top-end Mythic guilds, as well as a few others. Now, even with that, I suspect that to many of you watching today, that's maybe a noise you haven't heard, because the reality is, most people do not play Mythic. I mean, why sweat about the problems of the 1%, or even the 1% of the 1%, the likes of Echo and Limit? But of course the thing is, if what works for them is barely working for them, and also for the top 200, and it's even worse for people who are not in the top 200, and loads of people are just writing the thing off, then that really is quite a problem for the game. Now, today's video was written by myself and also Dakor, who really led a lot of it. He is our resident cutting-edge Mythic raider. He's been doing that absolutely for years, and, well, he's also had his guild disband. You've probably seen a number of YouTube videos pop up around this idea as well, often from pretty top-end people. As for me, well, I'm firmly a rung down in that ladder. You know, heroic. I got ahead of the curve, and that's kind of the goal ticked off for a season. But even with that, I, and a lot of people like me, are feeling somewhat lost right now. You see, Aberrus and Emir Drasil Heroic, they're genuinely too easy for my raid team. But of course for us, Mythic is totally closed off. We're happy with our group of friends. We don't really want to invest.
Because, I mean, if you have, you know, a dozen people, like he has for his team, you're able to accomplish the challenge. I also, I mean, obviously my perspective is different, right? But I've also felt that Mythic, or sorry, that normal and heroic are like much easier than they used to be. Heroic in particular is much easier than it used to be. But if you have a dozen friends and you can't rustle together 20 and trying to increase your roster by 60% and also have them at the same skill level, that's very challenging. No, he was even saying at the beginning of like, it's just too easy for his team in general, not at the end of the season.
The extra time and effort into getting 10 people while also somehow still preserving the social circle that we enjoy, so Mythic 20 is just not feasible. So, we are in a position where normal and heroic raiding is more accessible than ever, but for many old heroic raiders, the game is just no longer tuned for them, no longer tuned for us. But the next rung up in the ladder itself is struggling majorly. That's happening in 4 big areas, and that's what we're going to break down today. Tuning, design, progression, and barriers. We went deep, we've spent days reading, learning, listening, and that's only possible because of today's sponsor. Squarespace, they're an online site builder with a host of tools to support your needs, be they a portfolio, online shop, or your email newsletter. Their award-winning templates are so easy to understand, and their tools make it a breeze to walks you and more info for our game.
There we go.
Squarespace is where I went immediately. Time is money, and they will get you something that looks great super fast. And the good news is that at squarespace.com/Bell,
There we go.
This part of the story starts with Sepulchre of the First Ones, which was a truly wild time. Blizzard basically got things so wrong with difficulty and gear acquisition that the likes of Anduin and the Jailer became some of the most nerfed bosses in World of Warcraft's entire history. This is a situation that led to game director Ian Hazacostas saying this: "We'd rather not have to nerf things 20 times for the rank 100, 1000, or 5000 guilds to be able to blaze that same trail afterwards." He was talking about those nerfs, and people thought that with him saying that, things would change. They have a little bit, but not that much. Yes, Tindral and Farak were not as bad, but they still required a lot of heavy nerfs. It's almost as if Mythic has got its true race to world first difficulty, a mode for the top 200, and then many nerfs later, the Mythic mode that most people are actually able to progress through. In an ideal world, these nerfs wouldn't be needed. Natural gear progression is the thing that ultimately is supposed to do that job, but in reality, it doesn't.
Yeah, because you're only actually going from, you know, the world first guilds killing things at like 480, 481, people coming afterwards with like 3 or 4 more eye levels and getting annihilated. Like the skill disparity between world first professional teams that are playing the game all day long and then like the average gamer dad mythic guild is wild.
What actually happens on the ground is that most guilds outside the very top end do rely on nerfs for progress. Yeah, they can run into a brick wall for countless hours before a nerf, but that isn't fun, and by this stage, they've been trained to expect the nerfs. Clearly then, Mythic difficulty is calibrated for the race, and the rest are just left waiting for nerfs. That is something that, especially with, say, Tindrell, many faced this time round. Of course, what these nerfs are, though, are goalposts moving, and that's also a problem. We have this race first, majority of the player base second kind of approach that to many robs the satisfaction of earning a kill. Nobody likes it when the goalposts move. The experience of a boss going from a brick wall to a face roll is quite invalidating to people's progress. Your past efforts matter less because the kill was tampered with, and the nerfs often require brand new strategies, which, again, invalidates your progress and your prior efforts.
Yeah, that UI is atrocious. But what he's talking about right here is it used to be, like right when I got into like Mythic rating and stuff, it used to be that Blizzard would lay down like one round of like small to medium nerfs for fights. And so it was like, oh, did you kill the boss pre-nerf or not? And that was it. There was like one nerf and that was it. Nowadays, they just nerf over and over and over and over and over again. And then it really gets to a point where even my guild at like World 40 is like, oh, we're waiting for the nerfs for this fight, you know? And that's such a shit way of going about like even a Hall of Fame rating, where you're like, oh, well, we're not good enough, like, let's just expect the nerfs and wait for the nerfs, you know? Yeah.
Relearning a fight 200 pulls in ain't fun. Then there's the flip side.
Oh, yeah. And then when you have strategies change and you have to redo weak auras and add-ons and setup like that, that's also pretty shit. Yeah.
The guilds who actually do progress, well, the challenge that they just overcame is then reduced. And if those players are motivated by ranking, if they care about ranking, that feels quite awful, and ranking does matter because Blizzard does support an official leaderboard. This stuff doesn't feel good. WoW's problem then is that Mythic is caught between the difficulty demands of the race and the difficulty demands of the majority of its player base, and as a mode, it doesn't seem to be growing. It's a difficulty mode that ultimately feels like it's made to cater to an unofficial esport, and then later nerfed into a design that works for the top end of WoW's player base. Ultimately,
yeah, and then when you're trying to do both, it just kind of causes problems. Hey, then Seraphita, thank you for the 11 months in a row. Yeah, when you're trying to do the esportification, I do agree with that point, where that definitely is how it feels with like trying to make sure that it's going to be esport related, everything like that. Mythic Lockout definitely has a lot to blame. The raid size is a lot to blame. I mean, honestly, it's just the difficulty of the game. Whether it's, you know, add-ons, weak auras, gameplay optimization, like there's not even that many people who, like, if you think in the general world, are optimizing or like near flawless with their damage or healing or tanking or whatever. And you have to do that while also doing the mechanics, you know?
then, no matter what way you cut it, the situation with nerfs is not ideal, and it shouldn't continue. It does, though, lead me to our final point on tuning. Okay, this is a smaller problem, but if it's fixed, it could rather counterintuitively actually make things worse. Let me explain. There is a mild increase in difficulty from bosses 1 through to 6, and then a massive jump up to Smolderon and beyond. Now, many would say that a more smooth difficulty curve would be ideal, right? Something about boiling frogs. But the problem is, if you smoothed out that difficulty curve, you'd probably end up making some of the first 6 bosses, well, harder. And as we've just covered with tuning, that actually might extend some of these problems to even more guilds. Okay.
So what he means right there is, if you wanted to have this theoretical difficulty curve, if you wanted to have, you know, the theoretical difficulty curve be like this, instead of what it is today, which is like that, it would basically result in a lot of the early boss fights just being significantly harder. And then that would also be a turnoff for a lot of raiding guilds. Yeah.
We've talked about tuning, but that's not the only thing involved.
These are tin
Next,
soul, I think.
we've got to talk
Tin
about
soul.
design.
Easily.
Okay, design-wise, there's two major things I want to...
What's Blizzard earn with a world first race? I mean, promotion for their game. They support the esport. They support the challenge. It's kind of free promo, you know?
hit. Number 1, instant wipes. Number 2, private ores, because surprisingly, they haven't worked. First up, instant wipes. This is one of the larger problems in modern WoW. Instant wipes that are caused by a single player slight mistake. Say, missing an interrupt ever so slightly, soaking an orb half a second too soon. Essentially, binary pass-fail mechanics where if one single person fails, the entire group goes down. Now,
I'm fine with that for last boss fights, though. I think that's okay. But in general, like, having not enough people alive or something like that, and you die like an enrage of like Laradar, or you don't have enough damage and you kind of just run out of mana or something like that for the others.
oh yes, 100%
council.
perfect play from everyone may be intended for the race. Is that best for the game, though? That's an interesting question, and it's one that we have an answer for directly from World of Warcraft's game director. This is what Ian had to say. When is it okay to wipe the raid instantly for a mistake? Honestly, the answer should be almost never, at least when it's more like a single person's Twitch reaction mistake of you fail if you do a mechanic incorrectly or whatever. Ian goes on to say, it's totally reasonable on Mythic to kill the player for making a mistake like that, but he says, and this is the direct quote, to say the entire raid is over because someone was 1 yard out of position is not our aim, okay?
Okay. But let's take Smolderon for an example. Let's take Smolderon for an example, guys. Let's say that you stand in, fire in the intermission phase, and then you die, right? And so they actually make it so the orbs disappear. But even to this day, that boss fight is still a Titan rage timer for a lot of guilds out there. That's still a very Titan rage timer for a really high amount of guilds. And so having more gear doesn't really make Smolderon a stomp for anybody.
Okay, the point then is, killing a player, fine. Wiping the whole team, that is not their aim, and that's the words of WoW's game director.
What do you think about something like an ultimate? I don't know, about 5 difficulties, man. That's a lot. What is this? This is a brand new video, Milo.
Who himself comes from a high-end raiding background. If that is their aim, Yggdrasil has not met it. Yggdrasil launched with 9 such mechanics. It's a pretty cut and dry topic. As is our next one, private auras. Private auras were initially hailed as a solution to the weak aura problem, where weak auras would essentially automate very complex boss mechanics. And the idea here is that anything protected by a private aura just can't be read by an add-on, and that means that weak auras wouldn't be able to do things like auto-assign player positions, timers, rolls, or anything like that. The context here is a lot, but mostly Shadowlands for today's purposes. Especially in the Sepulchre of the First One's race, the weak auras got completely out of control. It had many mechanics that required excellent split-second reactive decision-making from multiple people at the same time, and if that didn't happen, there would be a wipe. Yeah,
I'm glad that he mentioned that part, because, you actually need to, have perfect, flawless setup, and the only really way to do that is just to have weak auras the entire time.
I think you can understand the source of some of the Ian quotes we've talked about so far in the video. Anyway, with such punishing mechanics, it's no wonder that weak auras became extremely important to top-end guilds. The intent then was for private auras to solve this, but in reality, it just hasn't worked. You see, in many cases, private auras were applied to mechanics that were essentially impossible to do without some form of workaround.
Yeah.
For examples, we've got Neltharion bombs, Smolderon orbs, and Farak orbs. Now, yes, the private aura means that it's impossible for an add-on to automatically tell people what to do. But you know what private auras don't do? They don't stop players replicating that by just manually forwarding the information to weak auras via macro, which negates all of the private aura work with a single key press. Now, the problem is, those macros could be secret. They could be rather brittle. So if you're a top guild that has got a dedicated weak auras development team, this stuff is actually better than fine. It's literally a competitive advantage because you have the resources to do a good workaround and other people won't.
The other thing is, holy shit, this is a video game requiring software developers to do mechanics. Like, I don't know of any guild that's ever killed Echo of Neltharion without weak auras, or like Smolderon without weak auras, or Farak without weak auras. Like, the fact that to do the content you have to have that is just
those
ridiculous.
guilds below that level are essentially left waiting for Echo and Liquid to share their solutions.
Yeah.
And because this stuff tends to be very complex and very custom, it's rarely a smooth experience where guilds are ending up spending large portions of raid nights just configuring weak aura packs, which is not fun. Now, yes, they could simply not do this and try to do the fight normally, but if the mechanic feels wholly unreasonable to do without a weak aura, then the weak aura will feel like your only option. And this is rather well put by Saliathan, who put together a big old write-up for Raider.io on this issue. Here's the quote: "When difficulty no longer comes from actively playing the game, but the juggling of third-party tools, something is amiss." That absolutely is the case. And for an example, for Dakor's guild, they would spend multiple hours on multiple bosses getting weak auras ready across 20 players. Now, they raid for 2.5 hours a night, and that means that large portions of their raid time went into weak aura configurations. And it's at this point that I would remind you that World of Warcraft is a game and a hobby. Maybe this is not what it should be. So between binary white mechanics that hinge on a single player's reaction time and the ongoing issue with weak auras, Mythic is quite simply not hitting its design goals as stated by the developers and as felt by the players. Meanwhile, we then have all of the tuning issues happening on top of that. This is pretty rough, and it's happening to players who, to even show up, got to go through quite a few hurdles.
Yeah. So to cap off what he's talking about with like the private auras and everything, for one thing, it's good to have boss fights where you don't need to have like add-ons and weak auras and everything to do them. And I think the two main boss fights where you really need them is Smolderon and Farak in this raid. Like, yes, it can be helpful to have something on pips to track like the absorb that you need to stand in garbage for or something like that. But is it mandatory? Far from it, right? They're not, they're testing mechanics to see if they work, but they're not figuring out mechanics without weak auras to be able to replicate it on a regular basis, right? Because when you have to have 3 people and everyone in voice has to call out which of them has it, and then you have to sort through the 3 people who said, I have a bomb on me on Smolderon, and then you have to say, okay, well, Jimmy go first, and, you know, Sarah go second, etc. Like that's just kind of a shit show to do. It's just honestly kind of a shit show to be able to put together. You know, Farak, how do you make zone defense? Like literally you're setting up zone defense for 20 players to be able to soak orbs and the corresponding colors and meeting a DPS check that's actually really brutal, you know? It's quite a head scratcher.
Organization is a nightmare in 3 main ways: roster, comp, and time. Let's learn why. Starting with roster. Mythic has always had a fixed 20-man requirement, and that's inherently hard. If you look at other games like Final Fantasy XIV, we see that even in their hardest difficulties, they're moving away from large team sizes like that. So if your guild has only got a stable roster of between 10 to 15 players, you are simply out of luck. If that's your social circle, and you would like to do hard content, World of Warcraft...
One sec. Give me a sec.
Warcraft is not a game for you. You either recruit more people, which risks your social enjoyment and team cohesion, you abandon your guild to do Mythic content somewhere else, or you give up and just stop at Heroic mode. The problem with Heroic, though, is that, as I'll note, it's not what it used to be. Razageth was a very satisfying kill for my own team. Sarkareth was easier, less satisfying. Farak was an absolute pushover, which is insane given he was the end of expansion boss. Yet, for a guild like mine, well, Farak Heroic is the end of the line. We're not going to split up. We don't want to recruit more people. And you might say, that's a you problem. And you're right, it is a me problem. But the thing is, if thousands of teams are in a similar position, then what in isolation is a me problem, well, that turns into a problem for WoW. On the other end,
it becomes a we problem, right? So his whole point is the game, in order to get more progression, requires you to adjust your friend group, adjust how your team plays, how much they play, to be able to move on. It's insanely difficult to be able to put together a low-hour Mythic team at this point, and to be able to sort of keep it together, you know? Heroic challenge raid mode that added the mechanics from Mythic but kept the scaling of Heroic. I think they just have to be okay with allowing Heroic to be a bit harder, and then also lowering the body count of Mythic. Yeah. Yeah. Stallion's doing a video on add-onless play, how inconsistent tracking of buffs. I'm gonna do something like that too, man. Dang. That's fucked up. Sitting around waiting for raid leaders to figure out assignment lists and week orders not working. It's like it's like a bureaucracy you have to go through in order to play the game. Yeah, it's ridiculous. They can offload 10 minutes of Sodden's experiment. Sodden's not difficult. Come on, man. Come on. It happens that the dynamics of cultural and social constructions when you hit a certain amount of people. Yeah, that's the other thing too, right? Is you can have like a tight-knit friend group at 10, but then as you go to 20, there's more clicks, and 25 man or even 40 man at lots of clicks, like crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. Yeah. Never compare classic grades to retail. Classic grades are beyond too easy. Yeah, that's the other thing too. See, I had like 400 something wipes on Tindril, but it didn't really feel like too much because the wipes were fast. And I'm fine with it, being fast wipes in a lot or something like that. But when it's so punishing that like if somebody dies in phase 1, you might as well just wipe and go again, it's just silly, Yeah, you're right, Tel. The only way you can actually have a social experience is if you have a couple friend groups within an overall team at 25 man. But I think that's also a good argument for why it's not great,
end of the scale, there is the problem of over-recruiting. If your attendance is close to 100%, which you would certainly hope for, then there will be people on the bench who just won't see any play and who wants to be stuck in the bench. Those people will eventually leave. 20 players is hard right now. WoW makes it even harder, and a key part of that is our next point, and that is composition. Just bring the player, not the class. Optimization only matters for Race to World First guilds. That sounds like a reasonable thing to say, but it is missing context. It's implying the whole thing is a self-inflicted avoidable problem caused by sweaty Race to World First players and the meta slaves who follow. The reality, though, is more like this. With how impactful raid buffs are nowadays, there's almost no choice left in group comp. In some of the popular standard comps, there's like 5 free slots. 15 are pretty much rigid. Now, why would somebody shoot themselves in the foot by using a suboptimal comp for months of raid progression, especially with all of the difficulty stemming from tuning and design that we've already covered in this video, with Blizzard literally needing to move the goalposts via nerfs to get guilds across the line. Now,
so this is a big one because if you're not bringing a druid, you're missing out on what, 2%? 2% verse, 4% verse, so like 2% damage, 2% healing. And then there's these boss fights where you're like limping over the finish line, like Smolderon, or honestly, even limping over the finish line. I've seen guilds on like Laradar or like Council where you're losing people and just trying to get enough damage to get over the finish line. 3% verse, 1.5% of damage, mage 5% int. There's no other way to be able to bring it, I don't believe so, Lazzle. I think if you still kill it on Mythic difficulty, you still get 2 mounts.
This has the knock-on effect of gradually shrinking guild rosters as
and that's the other thing is when you shrink the guild roster, you can't afford to not play with your Holy Pally. You can't afford to not play with your Druid. You're like, oh, this guy's out, and it actually makes the entire raid worse as a result for not having that person. And so not only do you have a very rigid composition, but you also are requiring everybody in the group to be there every single time and have perfect attendance. And if you don't, there's not really good fill-in, you know? Like, yeah, you could shoot yourself in the foot and play without Devo Aura or play without, you know, stamina or something like that, but it's not going to be a good time, you know, if bosses are still going to be this challenging and this tightly tuned and all of that stuff. Yeah.
Become more rigid. That has impacts on your bench, and that's of course built around class buffs and utility.
Yep.
Less diversity of classes will mean fewer opportunities for players to play what they enjoy. These smaller rosters with fixed feeling comps then means one big thing, and that is fragility. Fragility leads to frustration, it leads to inordinate pressure on players to actually turn up because rosters are getting smaller, and that leads to the dreaded thing of having to recruit people mid-tier, and this slowly kills guilds. It saps their energy. As Nascent recently shared in their community council thread, one that got a lot of traction, our roster has been forced to be so small that we often struggle to adapt because of how rigid we are being forced to operate. It is more difficult than ever to operate a Mythic raiding guild.
Yep, 100%. If one day they'd ever reduce the Mythic raid size, they'd have no choice but remove raid buffs or spread them, as in WoD, Ithalis. You say that like it's a bad thing. That sounds like a great thing to me. Most of these arguments and points aren't new, but it's good to see them reiterated and consolidated. Yeah, 100%, man. 100%. Partners Guild has had to remake their entire healing squad twice this tier, and they're on Tindril. Yep. That's the thing is, like, when you lose momentum and you lose steam and you can't have a heavier roster and you don't really have flexibility, it is a nightmare. Yeah.
That is not good, and it's a hell of a lot to stick out given our next thing, time commitment. If you're doing Mythic, then cutting edge is probably your goal. That's going to require between 2 and 4 days a week of maybe 4-hour-long play sessions across 2 to 4 months, right? At least 10 hours of raiding a week. But in addition to that, you're going to need as good gear as you can get. That means doing lots of Mythic Plus, especially front-loaded at the start of the season. So, over 10 hours a week of boss progress, then you've got your weekly keys, your pre-raid prep, your character prep, and then third-party tools like weak auras, cooldown spreadsheets, various add-ons, which all is a lot of work. Essentially, this extracurricular work on top of the already demanding raid schedule that many teams have got to set in order to actually hit their goals, it is simply a recipe for burnout. Guildmasters and officers are just not finding it sustainable, and this is a theme you will see if you read almost any guild disbandment blog post. Gear then. This doesn't.
I mean, part of that of like having to do a lot of things to do Mythic is like fine if the game was a little bit more flexible. Like he's talking about general friction, and it's one thing to have like a larger challenge, but I think it really comes down to raid size. Because if you have a group of 10 people and they all want to be sweaty and all want to do their thing, like it actually works out to be pretty well, you know? Because there's a lot of times where gamers want to play the games a lot and they want to do things a lot. It's just really difficult when you're somebody who really wants to do those things, is really into playing the game, and then you're struggling to find 20 other people that actually want to do that with you as well. Because when you're putting in all this effort and you're putting in all this work to accomplish that goal, and then other people are coming around and, yeah, they're kind of shaky and whatever, and then you can't raid as a result, or like somebody's dead on the floor and they're 5 eye levels below you or something, or they didn't farm up a good trinket to help out with a boss check or something. It just makes your life, your experience worse, and then it just ruins the fun for it, and then you're not going to be that hyped about playing the game anymore. Or you're going to go for a different raiding team, or you're going to leave or quit or whatever.
seem to be as major, but the very rare items and no deterministic way to get them can lead to frustration. It's one of those things where, well, yeah, getting a big, exciting bit of loot is fun, but if you get it by the time a raid is on farm and there's not that much else to do, well, is that fun? Is that exciting? Do you feel like you could actually use that new piece of gear? To many then, rather than something fun at the end of their journey, these end up feeling like a bit of a frustration, something that they would rather have a bit earlier so that they could enjoy putting those bits of loot to work while they are progressing. A lot of people in the Mythic community also speak of the dinar system that was added in Shadowlands Season 4, but as we already know, Blizzard considered it to be a bit too fast when it came to giving people, well, those key bits of loot like weapons and trinkets.
Okay, but then slow it down. Like, that's the thing. You just gotta slow it down. Like, Blizzard always oscillates between these extremes. It's like, here's the dinar system, and it's sick, and it's quick, and it's fast, and it's easy, and it's everything. And then no dinar system at all whatsoever. Like, you could find a middle ground. You know, you could actually set up the gearing system so that it's gonna be very slow at first, and so that instead of Mythic Raiders being, or World First Raiders being 480, 481, whatever. I'll talk about that in a sec, Runic. Instead of World First Raiders being 480 or 481, and killing the end boss, they're having to do it at like 474 or something like that, because they slow it down at the beginning, and it's still killable at that point. And then other people that come afterwards are killing it with 10 eye levels, with a dinar or two to get that perfect item, you know? I'm fine if they slow down gearing at the beginning of the patch, because then that can also make it so that the boss fights are actually tuned better for guilds that get there later, you know? The trinkets you'll never even get to try because you're unlucky. Yeah, I mean, how many people still don't have a trinket that they want and they've been playing a character since the beginning of the patch? You know, like, yeah, like, you can have a dinar system. You don't have to make it insanely fast, but you know, there is actually a middle ground here. But man, I feel like it's pulling teeth to get Blizzard to recognize that.
To me, in looking at the big picture, I think gearing is in a far better position, really, than it's been in years. However, for Mythic, they're trying to do the hardest stuff, so any issues will kind of be exacerbated. I think that's what's going on there. Also, on the topic of legendaries, well, I think suffice to say, Dragonflight legendary acquisition hasn't really gone down amazingly with the Mythic people either. I think on gear...
Bellular's a very nice person. I met him at BlizzCon. Very nice person. I think anybody who has a legendary could agree that they suck this expansion.
There are problems, but they're not humongous ones. Some people would also say perhaps that the myth track stuff, you know, maybe a heroic raider shouldn't be able to get gear that is that good. I think there's a discussion around there, but overall to me, it seems that gearing is a issue, but it's certainly not the biggest one. With that said,
that's fair.
Let's actually talk about solutions here. Solutions, and I think there's good news here where the solutions do seem rather clear. I mean, you can nudge class design to have fewer fixed slots within a comp. Maybe consider dinars or something inspired by them as a system in the game. I know Blizzard are a bit scared of that, but I think in a very alt-saturated landscape that I think is what the War Within is going to be, something like that could actually work. I'd also say consider maybe players having some control over that very rare loot. Maybe something cool could go on there. Then...
But that's the thing, is like you could very easily set up some deterministic grind that unlocks after X weeks in the expansion so that somebody can unlock a dinar coin. It doesn't have to be, oh my god, you get 3 coins, you get your weapon, you get your trinkets, and then you're done, and like everything's fine. Like, you don't have to make it so fast. And I guarantee you, if you set up some kind of grind or deterministic way that somebody could get the item, people will go do it. I think the legendary stuff was a pain in the ass because people are constantly getting their bad luck protection, and then they just, you know, it's 2 months later and they still don't have it, and somebody else gets it day 1, you know?
We've got the hard-to-stop design problems that have persisted from Sepulchre of the First Ones through to now, even though interviews have acknowledged that those problems are problems and that the developers want to fix them. I think the solution there is pretty simple. Fix them.
Fix them.
The developers said they know what the issue is, so...
Part of this video as well that Bellular's talking about is that Blizzard has recognized that these things are issues. They recognize that raiding and how raids are designed and produced are issues, and then they're not doing anything about it. And honestly, the key reason for why they aren't is, I swear, it's because of their content scheduling. Like, they are so pressed, and it's been, 20 years now, of making an MMO, and they're just always like looking over the next hill, like, we need to hit this deadline, we need to hit this deadline, we need to hit this deadline. And then that results in less polished content, less polished systems, all of it, you know? Like, I can understand that, you know, you're a corporation, you got to make the money and everything, but then it comes off in such a bad way when, you know, he's bringing up these quotes that they need to fix those things, and then they don't. I'd almost rather that Blizzard just not say anything, you know? It has to do with Race World First raiders having their ear the most. I don't think so. I've seen, I mean, obviously a lot of high-end players will have connects with Blizzard in one way or another, right? But my experience talking to Blizzard is that they'll hear us out, or, you know, like when I was at BlizzCon, I talked to developer A, right? And A was talking to JB and I. And JB started spitting like crazy stuff about like gearing and dinars and all kinds of stuff. And the developer was like, I hear you. But it was very much a like, I hear you from your perspective, but that's not everybody's perspective kind of thing, you know, as JB does. He was doing his thing. No way. Oh, JB was very lit at BlizzCon. And he was like, let me tell you about how much I hate this gear and blah, 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 you know, all that kind of stuff. Bring back dinars, like he was going in. He's going in. And like, there's some points where I'm like, yeah, I agree with him. And then there were times where he was going off, you know, off the deep end. And the developer was like, yep, like I hear you, cool, you know. So I wouldn't say that like high-end raiders, high-end players or whatever are like hyper influencing the devs. They'll hear you and then they're like, all right, JB is not taller than me. JB is not a tall person. Yeah. Where's the full body picture? Well, it's not a full body picture, but he's not a large man. He's a happy man. Here's where I had an AMF. And I was feeling it. I was feeling it at BlizzCon. He's on his knees there. I mean, I'm 6'4", so yeah. Yeah. Dinar should work like Sparks, but get him every 3 weeks at the start of an X-Pack. So, you can loot target, then bring it down to 2 weeks, 8 weeks in. Every 3 weeks. Something like that. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's in California.
I imagine that, well, can be done, right? It's all fine and clear. There is one larger structural change, however, that people are interested in, and that is Mythic 10. A 10-player version of Mythic. It's been talked about for a while recently, popping off on Twitter, Reddit, as well as YouTube content from some high-end players, and as well in dev interviews. Many people want it, and personally, I am one of them. Admittedly, though, it totally is in my interests. I mean, Heroic, as I said, is simply too easy for my guild, but we don't want to expand and take on the organizational work that would come with Mythic 20 rating. So for us, Mythic 10 means we get a perfect step up. We don't have to radically change how our guild is organized. It would be fantastic. Yet, you can still see that there could be some problems. A tightly designed encounter for 20 players, you can't just half that and expect it to work just fine for 10. Certainly fights like, say, back in the day, the council fight that was quite a bit harder in 10-player than 25 with the initial launch tuning of Throne of Thunder. That's one that I've got launch month memories of. So yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. 10 men would be either easily. It could be 226 or 235. Yeah. If it goes to 10 men, guilds like Echo and Liquid would split. I mean, they wouldn't run 2 rosters, I doubt. They would just keep a really heavy roster. But like in this scenario, like, yeah, he raises a good point. They'd have to redesign boss encounters, but that's fine, you know? Like when you are trying to make the game more accessible for people, one of the things they're doing right now for 5-mans is they're truncating and they're shrinking difficulty levels, right? So that way it's a steady progression from, hey, M0's pretty tough, but there's no time limit. So like, take your time, make your mistakes. You're still getting the same loot. Just stick it out, right? And then you go into 2s, and 2s are the equivalent of 12s, right? And then it's like, okay, well, this is difficult, but there's a time limit and there's an increased reward, and you go from there, right? 2 rosters, 12-hour shift each, 4 hours to look at what the next ship found, sleep 8 hours. There you go. See? And at the end of the day, like, we shouldn't be thinking of, oh man, if we go to 10-man, like, what's Echo and Liquid gonna do? Like, you know, no offense to them, but the bigger value is making sure the entire player base can play. Yeah. Yeah. And then somebody was asking about, like, what's the equivalent of BlizzCon for EU? It's probably like TwitchCon. Yeah. M0 next season gonna drop loot off every boss or only the end of dungeon? I think it would still work the same, Whimsy, but it's the eye level is gonna be the equivalent of a 10. Yeah. It's not even 5%. It's like the 1% of the 1%. Yeah. But I mean, the way that they're changing M Plus is they're making it so it's like an onboarding of like, okay, M0 is giving you some sick loot, end of vault reward, and it's still gonna be, but it's gonna be harder, right? It's gonna be harder than the Mythic Zeros we know today. But there's no time limit, so take your time, stick it out, and then it's a better on ramp to get people into doing Mythic Plus. And the same thing needs to actually happen for EU, or rating. Excuse me.
Yes, you've got some design quibbles there. Even things like loot item level. I mean, would Mythic 10 in fact be a middle ground between Heroic and Mythic 20? And Mythic 10 would be nice, but would it inherently fix some of the problem issues that we've had here?
Yes, it would. Yes, it would. Yes, it would. Because if you want to make 10-man, then you also have to revamp your raid buffs. Oh no, God, what a big problem. Oh, geez, man. You know. Also, nobody said it yet, but I know it happens every time where people are like, oh man, like you won't be able to have as epic of fights. I'm like, that's on Blizzard to figure out. Yeah. We cannot go back to 10-man and 25-man or something like that. You need to like rip the band-aid off and go to 10-man. Yeah. 10-mans gave less loot than 25-mans. Yeah. You need a Bloody K on some bosses. Every raid is so bad. I mean, that's for them to also design better, you know?
No, it wouldn't. If you still have those, you know, one player makes a whoopsie, the whole raid explodes, if you still have those problems that the Mythic population is, you know, that they're all thrilled about, well, Mythic 10 will certainly increase the Mythic population, but those problems may still persist. Blizzard seem to have been...
But there's a difference between one person out of 10 makes a mistake and you go boom, versus one person out of 20 makes a mistake and you go boom. Don't you guys think? I think it's more acceptable in a smaller raid size that if somebody dies, then the whole raid goes kablooey. Personally, right? Because then, you know, with a odds of it happening are different. They do, yeah. It's also easier to recruit and have a roster there. 20 people, you have less control over the quality of the roster. Yeah, exactly. Okay, yeah, I think that's fine, right? Like they can still have those things on Mythic or the last boss of Heroic, right? And it's like we got 10 dudes. You know, I think one of the biggest problems, and the thing I always hear about for high-end rating, or at least like even like mid-level rating of like Heroic into Mythic, is when people don't really align in their expectations. Like how many people have had it where you get into this guild expecting to progress this many hours, progress this much, or some of the expectations that are set aside, and then some people are not farming gear in M+. Some people are not doing, you know, their chores. Some people are not installing the weak auras ahead of the raid time. Some people are showing up late. Some people aren't studying new builds or something, and everyone is expected to know the builds, you know? There's so many times that happens in like larger raid sizes where people's expectations and their actions are just not aligned, and then it causes friction because you're like, oh, you didn't even look up the damn fight, and now we have to wait for you to learn it, you know? Great. Then it kind of wastes everybody else's time. It's a lot easier when you have a smaller raid size that like, hey, here's our expectations for what you're supposed to do. Okay, cool.
Being a bit more dismissive of the idea of Mythic 10. To be honest, though, I think it's probably time to give it a shot. I do think there's a clear option. You've got the likes of a Season 4 of an expansion. That would have been, obviously it's too late now, but that would have been a almost perfect time to do something like Mythic 10 as an experiment. Although, my mind does go, to, say, Wrath of the Lich King. It also goes to the Siege of Orgrimmar, both periods of time where World of Warcraft experimented with the format of its raids during an expansion. If they said, hey, for the first raid tier of the War Within, we're going to try Mythic 10. It'll have slightly worse gear than Mythic 20. We're going to give it a shot and see if it works. What would my response be to that? It would be pretty simple. Yeah, I'd acknowledge there could be issues, and it may not all go perfectly, or maybe even for some completely unforeseen reason, it could be a total disaster. But I'd respect the effort, and I'd be down for the experimentation, because I
think this is the biggest point. I remember when they switched to Mythic, and it was like chaos, and all kinds of people were getting pissed off because their 10-mans were merging with another 10-man, and like, any sort of time that you make changes to just how WoW is going to work in general, there's going to be friction, but you have to like stick through that, you know? Anytime that you're having organizational changes or anytime you're having life changes, shit's going to be weird. I agree, Faded, it would be the best time to experiment with it. But it's like, at the end of the day, you gotta have this friction to like make change.
think if anything, that
change is
willingness to experiment and play just a little bit more fast and loose with things, I think that has yielded good results in terms of the core game design of World of Warcraft through Dragonflight, and I'm very keen to see how that team is able to make the game better through to the future, and hopefully the narrative side follows, but that's a little bit out of scope for today's video. Anyway, that's the discussion. I'd love to know what you think. If you're maybe somebody like me who is not finding the heroic rating as maybe as satisfying as it was when you were, say, killing Razageth, because man, that was a satisfying kill compared to Farak, but you don't want to do Mythic, like, would you be interested in Mythic 10? I think actually, if you would be, we should really get together and tell Blizzard. Who knows? Maybe there's some people at Blizzard that are just absolutely, dying to give Mythic 10 a shot, and maybe they'd feel a little bit better if they knew the community kind of had their back. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so that's... Okay, did you guys hear what he said right there?
Dying to give Mythic 10 a shot. I think actually, if you would be, we should really get together and tell Blizzard. Who knows? Maybe there's some people at Blizzard that are just absolutely, dying to give Mythic 10 a shot, and maybe they'd feel a little bit better if they knew the community kind of had their back. Anyway.
That's what I'm talking about. You know what he's talking about? He's talking about internal politics at Blizzard. That's what he's actually driving at. That is the major point that he's driving at, is that when you're in this creative environment, it can be unpopular to bring up that, hey, the game might actually need to have this upswing or this change happen, even if it hurts at first. But if there actually is community support to give it a try and to make those big changes, that they might actually be more willing to do it. So few players do Mythic. If they change it to 10-man for a season, more players would do it. But no 10 or 20 at the same time. Yeah, no 10 or 20 at the same time. Blame Ian. See, the interesting thing for me is I don't really know how much Ian would have sway over it. Of like, I don't know if he has the like dictator powers to say, we're doing it, go make it happen, 10-man would push out more people from Mythic because it's harder to get carried. It's more apparent when someone doesn't pull their own weight. I mean, it is, but like, if let's just say as a whole, actually, that is a good point, Galarian. That is a very good point. If you were going to make it so that people can't get carried or something along those lines, I think it would also have to coincide with them making a better progression curve. And part of it is gear. And part of it is also making sure that you can like kill off bosses more easily once you outgear them. And so I think that'd be fine though, because hopefully it would turn into an environment where like high-end players would be able to kill bosses more quickly, get more gear more quickly, have a blast, right? They would get through all of it. And then like not as good of players, or players that don't want to take as much time, or players that don't want to do as much research or whatever, are going to be held back a little bit, right? I don't think it would really mess with the overall like population of people playing. I think in the long term it'd be better, but it would certainly like separate, the wolves from the pups, if you think about it. I think 20 men should go away completely, yeah. I think balancing around 10 and 20 is like too difficult. Yeah. 10-man exacerbates the existing problems of comp. That's the thing. If you switch to 10-man, you would be forced to deal with the comp issues, Kingston. You would have to do both at the same time. Yeah. Just because it's difficult doesn't mean it's not possible. Yeah, yeah. How about Race to World First? Doesn't matter. Like, Race to World First should not play a big role in them deciding what's going to be best for the entire player base. God's honest truth. You know? Like, World First Raiders, they'll figure it out. It's up to them. You know, there's only so many things they can do to stop the degeneracy of, like, World First Raiders farming and prepping and doing all that stuff, maintaining the rosters, whatever it is. But you know what? If there's more people that are actually invested in the game and invested into raiding themselves, it's just going to result in, like, a better experience. Like, one of the best things that can happen for Race to World First players is if the game is just more popular. God's honest truth. Have you ever done content where you heal with only one other healer? It's fun. Or it's terrible. But it's usually really fun. Honestly. When you have one other healer and you are just working with one other person, it's so much easier than working with a team of 4 or 5. Oh my god, man. Makes no sense. The hardest difficulty has such a big group size. The roster boss is too much. Yeah, especially in this day and age, you know? Especially in this day and age. Nah, you don't really like break up as like I heal 5, you heal 5, but you kind of break up how the CDs align. You kind of break up like the responsibilities. It is substantially easier. Oh yeah, it's so much easier. No, I don't think they'll ever gonna put it on the tournament realm, Roddy. It'd be kind of cool, but I doubt they will. I think they've had plenty of opportunities for it. Yeah. Yeah, like realm restrictions, the lockout restrictions, comp restrictions. There's a lot of things they could do to let out the floodgates, and they kind of need to. Because, I mean, at this point, the gear rewards between Raid and M Plus are not that high. It's basically just trinkets at this point. But then there's massive barriers, obviously, for raiding compared to M Plusing. You know? Thought they had modified raiding to make group comps be whatever they can be, not force any number of slots. No, so what they do, Lazil, is every like class in the game brings a different buff that also buffs all of your allies. So like druids bring versatility for everyone, priest brings stamina, mage brings intellect. And so like when you have a 20-person team, you want to have one of every class, more or less. And so you kind of have one of every class, sometimes two of a class, and then you know you have like 3 maybe flexible options. And that's about it. Yeah. People get one shot because they didn't stop or reduce the damage. The game just isn't fun. That's kind of a different problem. Yeah, but I know what you're saying, Zeston. That's less about raid size and it's more about like the entire environment for healing in general. Yeah. 10 men brings the benefit of hybrids. That is pretty true. Yeah, the hybrid healing becomes very significant. Yeah. 10-man comp build with integrated raid buffs that are raid specific, so you aren't forced into comps, or tuned bosses so raid buffs aren't required. You need more like homogenization of the buffs. It used to be that like paladins and druids would bring the same buff, shamans and priests would bring the same buff. Stuff like that I think is better. So you still have buffs, but you have a couple different options to bring it. Hunter could bring any buff depending on the pet. Yeah. Yeah, that is a concern as well, Spaz. They gotta get rid of some of the hybrid stuff. Yeah. Raid buffs are an issue, but let's not forget if they took them away, class stacking would become a major problem again. That's why I said you have to homogenize raid buffs, Neb. So like if you still need to have 5 or 6 different classes to bring the raid buffs, you're not just gonna stack 5 hunters or 5 mages or whatever, right? There is a middle ground there. There is a middle ground there. But also, the more that you're tuning and adjusting classes, the more that it stops people from like hard re-rolling to one thing for an entire season, you know? Because if you're constantly iterating enough, then somebody's not going to just like leave their main to go play something else if everything is like close enough, or it's eventually going to get buffed to be close enough. But I feel like having a forced diversity of classes through raid buffs is really goofy. It's bad. Also, yeah, if NA and EU are merged together, we'd be in paradise. We would be in paradise. This expansion's gotten better, Neb. You're right in general, but this expansion, you gotta admit, has actually been better. actually balance M plus as long as they're classes with 3+ CDs. Is the point now that it's required to be balanced around having a CD, which makes healing that damage worse? Yeah. But the thing is, Talonis, you know already, like if you play an NA, you know when you're signing up for a Frostbane group. I was living in Texas, I've been living in Texas, and I played an EU. I had 130 MS. Like, that's tolerable. Now, if you don't want to tolerate it, I mean, the groups will self-sort, you know? You'll say, hey, there's an EU group. Hey, we're a German group. Hey, we're a Russian group. Hey, we're an American group, whatever. And then you'll know before you go into it what server it is. And so you just don't sign up for them, you know? You know that because you have expansive knowledge of the game and realm stereotypes? Well, I mean, groups already on NA will be like, hey, there's an OCE group. And you see it's Barkless, it's Frostmourne, it's whatever, right? I don't know. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I did a OCE pug the other day and I had like 150 MS. But like, yeah, I don't know. You just learn. You learn as you play the game. But for a lot of people, they could tolerate that. You could tolerate that and then you have more people to play with as a result, you know? And then if it's too much, then you just don't play with those people, right? That's how I view it, at least. Yeah. The maintenance to set up a connection of that size? Oh, it'd be a nightmare. Yeah. It's a fever dream. Yeah. Instance groups go on a certain more central server so nobody's major issues. Imagine it'd take a long time to implement. Other games do it successfully. Hey, if they could do it, I'd love it. Yeah. You live in Asia, play an NA with 250 MS, you can still play. It's not that bad. That sounds pretty rough, but if you can still tolerate it, if it's like steady, then yeah, you can like learn how to play around it. Yeah. MS, the game still feels quicker than Final Fantasy. True. Oh man. Yeah, this is a really good video though. Shout out to Bellular for it. I like that. But also, gamers, I gotta get going. I'm gonna run around, go outside today, have a merry old time. Yeah, if you got 3.3 as Holy Priest, it's sick. If you guys haven't followed the stream already, be sure to do so. I have new videos up for 2 of the hero talents that we did yesterday. And a 3rd one is going live tomorrow. So, yeah. Big love for hanging for a little quick stream. No stream tomorrow. I'm going to be chilling. Maybe go hiking or something like that. Get outside, touch grass. The works. But yeah, have a great night, friends. Take it easy. I'll see y'all on Monday, all right? Take it easy.